Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. Let's talk about robots. Really? Robots? Yes, robots. They're here. Let's see by show of hands, how many people here have ever interacted with a robot? How many people here actually own a robot? Okay, a couple of you. How many people here would like to own a robot? How many would like to win one? Everybody wants to win one. Great. So we're going to do a giveaway after this. On your tables, you'll see a little card. You just fill it in with your name. The TMC folks are going to pick it up afterwards. And we'll do a drawing and give away one of our Roomba home vacuum cleaners. So it's fantastic for cleaning up after your pets and cats and kids and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you fill it out. We're not going to send you emails. It's not going on a marketing list. We're not going to spam you. It's only for this drawing. So I encourage you all to please fill one out. It's really cool technology. Okay, so robots. There are like 100 kind of robots out there. There's robots that do everything from, put a particular bolt on an assembly in a factory to, robots that help navigate ships at sea. So we're going to split this presentation up, and I'm going to discuss 3 different areas. We're going to start with some context around why robots, especially collaboration robots. What do robots have to do with collaboration? Then in the middle section, we'll actually talk about real-world use cases. What are companies doing with robots today? How are they transforming their business models? How are they making a difference to drive competitive advantage and achieve cost savings and increase, time to market, speed to market? And then we'll actually drive a robot. We'll actually do a demo, bring it out, show you how one of these collaboration robots work. And if you want to later on, you can join me and I'll actually let you use the robot. Okay, so everybody gets a chance to try it. So let's talk about why robots. And in particular for collaboration, I can share with you what that means to us at iRobot, right? It's about empowering you to do more. Bottom line, you've got a lot of things you want to do, a lot of things competing for your time. You'd much rather go play with the kids in the yard than have to vacuum the floor, right? That's a thankless job. Nobody wants to do it. And I would venture to guess that if you had a choice between watching a football game or going to a movie or cleaning the gutters, what would you choose? Right? We'd all rather be doing something that we love to do. So we employ robots to help you do more. So in the case of our Roomba vacuum cleaners and some of our other home products, these actually do things for you and you don't have to get involved with them. But what about on the collaboration side? What are we talking about for, robots that help you collaborate? And, I use the analogy going back to a Star Trek metaphor, right? Where you had a couple of things that were really important. It's all about compressing time and space. So you can do more things in less time and get places quicker, when you have to collaborate, in person with somebody. So in Star Trek, it's really great. You got the first part of it, which is warp speed. So instead of taking several lifetimes to reach a distant location, you can actually do it in a matter of hours at warp speed. And then it gets even better, because once you get to this remote destination, then you use something called a transporter and actually can beam down to the planet. So just like this, you've gone from being in orbit to actually standing in somebody's room, talking to them face to face. So when we talk about robots and video collaboration, we're talking about how we compress time and space. How do we do more in less time? How do we cover distances to get things done and collaborate? And I think that, if you look at it over time, we started needing to walk places, then we were able to use, horses and other things to increase our speed to get someplace. And now we have these fantastic jets that we can just fly on and get from here to New York in 4 or 5 hours, right? So even though we've gone faster, these times are just relative to what's practical for us to use today. Rocket ships go faster than 550 miles per hour, but for most of us flying around on commercial airliners, that's kind of top speed. There's a brick wall. We got excited for a while about supersonic speeds, and we had some issues there, and you don't see that anymore. So we're kind of stuck. So no matter which way you look at it, you're looking at a half a day just to get from one coast to the other, right? And if you're talking about going someplace else in the world, if you've got to go to Japan or you've got to go to Australia, that's a whole day, if not 2. So even though we've come a long ways, we don't have to walk all of these distances, it still is very time-consuming for us to physically go somewhere to collaborate, right? So then we turn to technology, say, how can I use technology or other things to be able to speed that up a little bit? Looking at something as old as regular mail. Anybody here still use the mail service anymore? All you get are, bills or coupons and things like that from spammers, right? But, mail was a way that you could sort of send a proxy in terms of text. You write a letter, you drop it off, somebody delivers it. You don't have to waste your time to go there. And then we had technology that took that to something like the telegraph, which was really revolutionary, right? I'm able to instantaneously send these text messages. And that was super, super powerful. And we went on from there. The telephone changed the world again. And now we can talk to somebody anywhere. And we have more than one device apiece. Some people still have telephones in their homes. Some people have multiple cell phones. You have one for your personal use. You have one for your work use. So we got phones everywhere where we can talk. And now we've got voice over IP, and we're changing the technology a little bit, but it's still a voice call. Some of those, actually, you can upgrade to video, right? You're seeing more and more screens built into the phones that we use today. So we can have a video conferencing solution, which is really, kind of a cool instantaneous way to connect and collaborate with somebody. So if I'm sitting in a room in San Francisco, I can collaborate with a group of folks that are sitting in Tokyo or in Paris, right? And I can have a conversation, and that's pretty effective, but it's not the same thing as being there. So if we look at video conferencing today and how powerful that is, we have a number of ways that we can communicate visually, right? We can connect rooms together and have conferences with just a screen and a camera and have meetings that way. We have completely immersive rooms where everybody appears life-size to you. It's like you're sitting right across the table from them. We have a number of different mobile devices. We have video conferencing you can run on your smartphone, if you will, desktop phones that are available. But it's still not the same as being there. We can actually move about that space. And that's what video collaboration robots do, right? They bring this all together and they allow you to not only be talking to somebody over video, but you have the ability to move around that space as if you were actually there. So you can see people, you can turn, you can go forwards and backwards. You get to interact in a remote location. So I can be in San Francisco and actually moving through a factory space in Mexico or Brazil. And that's what video collaboration robots are. We don't even have a name for this category yet. We call it remote presence, telepresence. I mean, the industry is that new. We're trying to talk about it. But it's beginning to take shape, and it's really divided into two types of robots that do this collaboration today. We have manual robots, which is basically like having an iPad or something with a joystick that you can actually drive around. So it's kind of limited, but it's inexpensive, and it's easy to get to. There are a number of applications for those, and you see them around. Then on the other hand, we have systems that are completely autonomous, meaning the robot can actually move by itself. It can actually drive to a location that you can schedule in advance and then call you once it gets to that location. It's intelligent in that it can sense its environment. It's aware and has a map of the space that it's operating in. So if the robot's in a remote building, it knows where the walls are and the doors and the desks and the plants and all of the things set up. In addition, it can actually detect people. So it's got radar systems and imaging systems that sense when a person steps in front of it. So the robot will stop and not hit the person. It can sense the edge of the stage, so the robot won't go off of the stage. Okay? So these robots and how they move around are connected over wireless networks. They talk with other types of communications devices. So in the case of video conferencing, they can talk with other Cisco systems or Polycom systems or Life-Size or any of those vendors. So the autonomous robots are a little more expensive, but they offer a lot more functionality. They're a lot more robust in how they integrate into your collaboration environment. And that's what enterprise customers usually choose to deploy, right? So what do these video collaboration robots look like? What should they look like? Well, they should look like you. And that's the idea in how they're designed. So when they're moving through a space, it's not some blinking red light, this ominous figure coming out of the future that freaks everybody in the office out. They're a little bit you know, startled when they see it moving down the hallway, but then they look at the screen and they don't see a robot. It's Steve, or that's Sharon, or that's Susie. So she's actually able to move through the space as if she was there, and people see her as Sherry. They don't see her entire body, but they see her face, they hear her voice, so they can recognize her. So that's the idea behind these collaboration robots, the fact that you can actually be in another area and actually interact with somebody. So video conferencing with the ability to move about in that remote space. Very important. So let's take a look. Oh, speak of the devil. Here's Spencer now, ready to help out. So this is one of the collaboration robots, and when we get to the next section, we'll actually do a demo of this, and we'll show you how he works. So let's talk about what customers are doing with these right now, because, you know, even though they're in their early days, these are being adopted by many industries. And our customers today are big companies. I mean, we're talking Fortune 100, Fortune 200 companies that aren't really hard to sell. They already have applications for these robots and have been evaluating them and waiting on this technology for quite a while. So whether it's senior level executives that want to collaborate and communicate, or people in manufacturing floors, operations centers, there's all kinds of applications. And what we find is that when a customer buys a robot to implement for one application, they come up with a new application basically every week. They say, oh my gosh, we can use it for this. They might buy it for one area of their business, start to use it in another area of their business. So it's very, very powerful. So let's look at some of these in a little bit more detail, and I'll provide you with real-life case studies. So in executive presence, it's about being in your office or your location. It could even be a home office, and be able to connect with other people that work for you. And in many cases, these are in open environments, right? So it might be a manufacturing space that's open where you're supervising workers or something. And you can have conversations with them and move about that space, and they can see you. Okay, one of our customers, a financial services company, the CEO uses these robots for his board meetings. When he has people that can't make it in for the board meeting, and these are senior executives at their own company, their time is really, really busy. It's always tough to coordinate one of those meetings. But if they're remote, they used to come in over video conferencing, and then everybody would be sitting life-size around a table, and here's a remote person taking up the whole screen, you know, that appears 20 feet tall, right? So this particular CEO said, I don't really want that. I want them seated at the table like they're there. So when a remote board member has to come into one of these meetings, they now come in over a video collaboration robot and are actually seated at the table with everybody else, and the thing that's presented up on the screen is the presentation or the subject of what they're talking about. So everybody's seated at the table, even if they can't all be there, they're having conversations. When they take breaks from the meeting and the conversation moves out of the boardroom into the hallway, or they sit down to have a cup of coffee or lunch, they're able to continue their conversations, they're able to continue their meetings, because those people aren't tied to the physical systems that are hanging on the walls of that room. They're able to move about the space as if they were actually there. Okay? They also use these when they're traveling. This particular CEO happens to be dual headquartered. He has offices in San Francisco, he has offices in New York. While he's in New York, or while he's in Singapore, or anywhere else, he can actually connect to the robot in San Francisco and move through the space and talk to the supporting staff there, marketing people, meet with the CFO, go over a latest project. Oh, there's Joe going by. Hey, Joe, hang on a second. Let's take 2 minutes and talk about what you're doing with this, new employee program we're putting together. So it's a very, very important capability that even C-level executives are recognizing as being key to them being able to move faster and embrace technology to allow them to achieve goals and objectives. Remote experts is far and away the biggest application for these robots today. I have all of these people that have this knowledge in one part of my business, and I want them to share that knowledge and work with people in other parts of the business. So in the case of manufacturing, for example, I can actually bring in somebody who's at headquarters and have him meet with guys that are working on machinery and equipment on the plant floor. Okay? So I have one customer that's using these. They have a manufacturing site in Europe where they build trucks. They have a factory in the US, and they have a brand new factory in Brazil. And it takes them, at their primary factory where they started building the trucks in their process, to put together a transmission takes like 6 hours. If you go to the factory in Brazil and it's the same exact equipment they're using, it doesn't take 6 hours. It's taken 22 hours to put together the whole assembly. So when they convert that in terms of labor and time and cost, it's running about $7 million a year they're losing because they can't build those things faster. So that allows for a pretty important ROI if they can immediately connect people in the factories that are building this thing in 6 hours and have them working directly with the teams that are building the assemblies down in Brazil. Okay, so having their business connected to their factories is really, really important for them, and how they bring in remote experts is key. You think about the time and the cost when a machine goes down in a manufacturing operation somewhere, it costs a lot of money. So how quickly can I get the right person with the right skill set in to meet with them? And there's no place to hang a screen. There's no regular video conferencing. I can't be holding up my laptop and trying to get them in a meeting. Having somebody that can come zipping down the line in a collaboration robot is how a lot of companies are choosing to solve this particular problem. So remote experts, far and away, the #1 application. There are a number of companies, including one that's been here speaking this morning, that use these in their open collaboration environments. And that's about initiatives like Workplace 2020, they call it, where they want their employees not to be locked into fixed physical spaces. They want them to be able to work in more open, collaborative environments where they have sofas and chairs and have coffee and can brainstorm and collaborate in open new ways on project ideas and how to get work accomplished faster. And they've also recognized that if they're going to hire the best and brightest employees, they're competing against a number of companies. It's very competitive in the US. If they want to get the best person for the job, that person might not want to live in Dallas. I think this is a great opportunity. I'd really like to take the job, but I'm happy in Chicago, or I'm happy in New York or San Francisco, right? I don't want to have to come to Dallas. So if we make that a requirement of the job, it's a problem. But we all know what it's like when you're interacting with somebody face to face. It's a better experience. So video collaboration robots allow them to create that kind of an environment, right? Where they can actually come into the space in Dallas and collaborate with teams as if they're there. They don't have to just sit in a meeting room. They can move about. They can go to the lunchroom and sit down and continue the conversation while they're having a sandwich. So it's really important application. One of the companies that I was talking about is doing this now, and they've begun to deploy these robots. And they actually have hard, fast goals around what they're going to do in terms of going to a distributed workforce. And the robots are a part of supporting these HR initiatives that they have, where they're tearing down all of the fixed spaces and creating much more open environments. Another customer we have in San Antonio is using the same application. If you go into parts of their business that used to be cubes and hard wall offices, they look very much like this room, with some different furniture and stuff, but they're different places for people to sit and collaborate, not in a room, but in a more social kind of a setting where they can be more creative, to look at new ways to attack problems and move the business forward. We have a number of robots that have been deployed in EBC type applications, or for doing tours and things like in museums, where you can bring remote people in and actually move them through the physical space. Including our partner Cisco, who uses these in their executive briefing centers. And there's two use cases they have here. One is, if they have an important customer, they're giving them a demonstration of new technology. And there was a key executive they wanted to be present, but they just can't. Maybe it's even John Chambers, and he's stuck, he's with a customer in Taiwan or somewhere. He can actually come in via the video collaboration robots and actually move about the space with the customer executives and have a conversation with them. So it's not forcing them all, into a room where he shows up on a screen. He's actually able to move through the space with the group, which is a much more personal, much more intimate experience to have, right? We have a big museum in Mexico City where they have 5 of these things they're using to bring in remote people to tour the museum, actually. So a number of applications in this area as well. As I mentioned before, when you identify one application in a business and they go to use it for that application, they very quickly discover other applications. So before you know it, a single robot can be in use by 5 or 6 different departments through the day. right? In the morning, I've got managers or supervisors that are connecting, talking to employees, seeing how things are going, making sure that if there are any critical issues, they're able to talk about it. We can have remote experts coming in that are helping streamline the implementation of some new equipment or new processes that are going on. We have some departments that come in that actually are doing quality surveys, going over data for the production run rates or something that's happening in the area. And we have a few customers that are getting very leading edge in their applications. They're actually using these robots to bring their customers into their facility, so that a customer, rather than make the trip all the way overseas, can actually be in one of these robots and go on a tour and watch their tractors being built or watch their airplanes being built, and talk to some of the folks that are working on it. So a single robot can have multiple applications, and we see that all over the place. So let's actually interact with a robot, and let's use it a little bit. So from our perspective at iRobot, we've been building robots for a long time, right? We started with the notion that we were going to help people do more. So from our first robots that we used to explore the surface of the moon, to the robots that we use to help clean your home, what's really important is that the robot understands its environment. So all the experience that we've gotten over the years have all gone into these collaboration robots in our commercial division that we started a couple of years ago. So this is one of our latest products that we released this year that we call the Ava 500. It's a fully autonomous robot that basically is integrated a Cisco video conferencing system on it and a camera with an internal Cisco wireless router that allows it to connect to the network in here. And remote people can connect to this using any standard video conferencing device. So whether you're using a Polycom system or Cisco or whatever, in this case, Spencer's actually sitting in the room. He's in the back over there with his laptop running a Jabber client. Or he's got an EX60 client back there, so whichever one he's using. As I said, the robot is intelligent, so it actually understands its environment. So earlier this morning, before anybody showed up here, we did a quick little map of this stage, so the robot knows where the boundaries are. If this was an office, he would have a map inside of him of the whole office. We'd have had him go explore and know where all the walls are. So those of you that saw us operating the robot yesterday out in the rotunda area, we'd actually mapped all that out, so the robot understands that space. And then we integrate that with the control device, which is like an iPad. So Spencer has an iPad over there, and all he does is touches on the iPad when he wants the robot to go someplace. Now, he doesn't actually even have to drive this robot because this is an intelligent robot. All he has to do is point on the map where he wants the robot to go, and the robot will drive there himself. The autonomous robots can also be scheduled. So if he goes in and he wants to use a robot for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and he wants to meet with a guy on a particular machine down in the factory in Brazil, he just schedules and say, hey, I want to meet with that guy tomorrow at 10 o'clock. The system takes care of all of the scheduling, making sure there's a robot available, making sure that the robot is charged. So tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, the guy gets a video call, and it's from the robot. The robot's already unplugged itself from its charging station, moved all the way through, navigating through fork trucks and whatever else is in the factory, gotten to the operator the guy wants to meet with, and then he places the call right at 10 o'clock. So I don't have to waste my time driving the robot around. At 10 o'clock, I'm having my meeting with the guy. I can roll on the line and meet with other guys if I want, or I can end the call and hang up, in which case the robot will automatically navigate itself back, plug in, and begin a recharge. It'll last for 6 to 7 hours of continuous use on one charge, and that's running video and running the motors and stuff. It takes a little more juice to move it through carpeted environments as opposed to a hard floor. But if he's stopping and plugging in every few hours or so, you can really run it nonstop, right? He's able to go from a standing position to a simulated sitting position, so we make the screen mobile. So if we're moving over to a work table or whatever, we're sitting down, having a cup of coffee, talking about ideas. I want to be at eye level like I'm sitting at the table too, so the robot can behave that way. If I'm back in the hallways and I'm traveling and I'm talking to people that are standing up, then I assume my standing height, okay? The robot moves about 1 meter per second, which is a pretty fast clip for a robot, and it actually frightens a lot of people. So what we end up doing is actually limiting it. So for each environment, we can control how the robot operates. So in certain places where it's scaring people, if it's going that fast, we can slow it down a little bit. There are areas where you have bumps in the road where we want the robot to go a little bit slower. We create no-fly zones for it, so we don't allow it to go into restrooms, for example, where we end up with HR issues on our hands if it did that. We obviously want it staying away from dangerous objects and stairs and things like that. So the robot can sense all of those things. Now, we talked about it having a map, so it's aware of its environment, okay? It also can sense objects, because the environment's changing. People are walking in front of it. If I step in front of the robot, I don't want it to hit me. With a manual robot, you can run the thing off of a building, down a flight of stairs, bump it into somebody in a wheelchair. This robot won't do that. It has 3 types of sensing and imaging equipment built in, right? So it's using radar and stuff to look around the environment. So if somebody steps in front of it, it stops. You'll notice, like when Spencer goes to move backwards, all of the sensing gear is in the middle housing there, so you'll see it like rotate to the back. So it'll check behind him to make sure there's nothing there as it moves back in the way. So for enterprise customers, especially trying to deploy this technology, it's really important for safety reasons that the robot is checking all of those things. You've got equipment moving through manufacturing areas and stuff, and you've got people walking through offices and hallways, or in your EBC or museums during tours. So you have to be safe in how you handle people and how you interact with people. So I don't have to really know anything special to use one of these robots. If I can use an iPad, basically, I can use the robot. So in addition to just pointing on the map and having it go somewhere, it's very easy to just move your finger forwards and backwards to have the robot go forwards and backwards. He can easily turn the robot from side to side. He can even adjust the camera, so if he's trying to look at something that's down on the floor or a lower piece of equipment, the camera is on a swivel mount so it can look down, so he's got full visibility to look sideways and up and down. Okay? So that's a video collaboration robot, and we think that they're really changing the way a lot of these companies, a lot of these businesses, look to communicate in the future, and it's changing a lot of their processes, okay? So those of you that are interested in winning one of the robots, one of the Roomba robots, we're not going to raffle this guy off yet, but one of the Roomba robots, make sure you filled out those slips, and we'll have somebody pick those up from the table. Have those all been collected right now? So if you have one that needs to be collected, hold it up and we'll get somebody to grab it for you, because we'll do this drawing here in a couple of minutes. So if we can get some help picking some of these things up, guys, they'll come around and grab them. Okay? Now, when we finish up the demonstration of this, those of you that actually want to use one of these things and drive the robot, if you want to see it and ask questions from the outside, come up here after Rich gets done closing us out. Or if you want to actually drive it yourself, go over by Spencer and he'll let you have the iPad application and you can actually see what it's like to be looking through the robot's eyes and driving the robot for yourself. Okay? So we're getting all of those collected. So if you want to enter this drawing for the Roomba, make sure you get these turned in. And I'm not going to give you this vacuum and expect you to take it on a plane and try and get it home. So when we draw the winner, I'll get your contact information. We'll have one shipped to your home or your office or wherever you're most comfortable receiving that, okay? All right, I see 1 or 2 more of these things and we're about ready to go. Now, we talked about us not having to drive the robot. So it can move around by itself. It knows where the charging station's at. It goes and it plugs itself in. Whenever it's not in use, it's automatically making sure that it's connected. And when you want to use the robot, you either can manually take control of one if it's available, or you can schedule it for future use. And simply using the iPad application, you can move the robot anywhere you want to go. Okay, anything else, Spencer? Okay, so he's good to go. Are we ready on the drawing? We have all of these things turned in. You want a picture of me or the robot? Oh, nobody wants a picture of me. Okay, so who has... Oh, here we go. We got a bowl here. Last chance. Going once. Going twice. All right. Let's see what we got. Huh? You can shuffle it. I'm not going to draw. You're going to draw. Ah, it's a good mix-up. She's really good at this. Okay, you got one? That's it. All right. And the winner is... Chris Frace. Chris Frace, I hope I'm saying it right. Chris, congratulations. Come on up here. Thank you very much. I'll hang on to this one. So with that, thank you all very much. I hope you learned a little bit about collaboration robots, and we'll see you around. Congratulations again, Chris.